You threw a leg across that iron horse and pulled the throttle down. A million things rushing through his mind like that rumbling sound. Living life in his own eyes, direction isn't clear. So searching all these years.
Welcome to Answers from Mars Hill. This is Pastor Ski of the Russian Wind Biker Church, and I just want to welcome you to this week's show. We're going to be continuing a little bit on the conversation we had last week, but just a little bit about what's going on. We have a new Supreme Court justice that looks like it's going to be approved in the next couple of days, installed maybe this week sometime, and so the chaos in our country continues. The separation and then the attacks, and we're so polarized in this country. It just gets worse and worse and worse. Coming into this presidential election, and so actually, the show I want to talk about today is kind of a continuation of last week about how life tends to expose the truth of our lives. And it's interesting as we are in this political season, and we see all these things going on in the world, and politics and news programs, and what's fake news, what's not fake news, and we start looking at these people who are running our country, and wondering what is the truth about each person. You listen to two different news programs, and you get different truths about people, and it's funny. I guess politicians have always been kind of that way, that you never know what you have, because they tend to say one thing and do something else, and it's just interesting that our whole culture, it seems that people are maybe not satisfied with who they are, want to be somebody else. And so, we started this conversation really about faith. If people actually have a faith, if actually they have convictions in what they believe in. But I want to expand that a little bit this week as we dig into the show a little bit later, about just truth is something that it seems to have gone by the wayside. About who is actually honest with their life anymore. Do we have to be honest with our life? Do we actually want people to be honest with us about their life? And it's just it's an interesting conversation when you look around, and who can you trust? Who do you distrust? Do you even know? Who are your friends? Who are people that you can trust? Do you really know them? And it even goes into our family. And it just shows the chaos as we go through this life, and what the world is like, at this time. And as I said, we're trying to get back to normal in this country with this pandemic that was winding down. 2020 is, if nothing else, is going to be a year to remember. Probably the rest of our lives. It's a year that's probably going to be talked about for generations. And not just we have this plague, but how it has shifted and changed so much in our world, so much in our country. And, coming from church world, I guess you'd call it, it has really changed the dynamic of a lot of things in church, how we do church. We have, thank God, we have kind of persevered and even thrived a little bit, our particular church, because I think what's going on is kind of exposing people's convictions. When people can't go to church, and it's been months now, things are opening up, but only a certain percentage. It's interesting to see how people, or what percentage of people actually now they're comfortable not going to church. How important has church actually been to them? How important has God been to them? And it's been an eye-opening just awareness of what's real, who's putting on airs in every area of our life. And, I mean, I'm very focused on the area of faith, church, Christianity, fellowship, with what this true faith was always intended to be. And I'm actually pretty encouraged because I think this is something in our country, in our world, and even in churches that was much needed. It's exposing the truth of what people are. And so from a faith perspective, from a trust, from a love perspective, I think it's very important that we're getting clarity about what's true about people, what's true about church, and again we're in a very interesting part of the year where we're voting in a week, and this is probably one of the most profound election cycles in the history of our country, both from a secular perspective, from a conservative and liberal perspective, progressive, conservatives, constitutionalists, and however you want to view it. This is, I think, a pinnacle moment in our country. And also faith and the alternatives, because even the world I'm in is being attacked, and we're at war. A lot of what we are hearing in the political arena does have some nuance, if not even blatantly involve faith, involve Christianity, involve Islam to some degree, as they start throwing out these prejudice and bias and faith, and it's just very, very intriguing right now as we see the chaos continue. It's interesting in the Bible. It always talks about that nations that veer away from God always end up in the place that our country is in right now, with the chaos, also with certain moral fabrics that have always developed. We tend to look at the time we're in with the different morality perspectives, whether it's the gay lifestyle, whether that's acceptable, whether it's not acceptable, transgender, and all these things that have become part of the fabric of our country. And I think a lot of people are under the assumption that this is a new thing, but going back over history, every great empire, every great nation has reached a point where this type of moral fabric of society has always developed, has always popped up, and how that affects our culture, how that affects politics, how that affects society. From a Christian perspective, we have our understanding of what is good, right, what is just, what is best for the human experience, and other people disagree and have their own ideas. But it's interesting that what we're going through is nothing new. Even biblically, the Bible is not about what used to happen. It's actually what always happens. And so here we are. And so after this first break, I want to kind of bring this topic into a different realm of just who's actually living true to themselves. Are we putting on airs? Are we changing what we are to something we want to be and not what we are, or what conforming to what the world wants us to be? And how truth is so scarce, even in who the individual is. So we'll be back in a few minutes, continuing this discussion on life tends to expose the truth.
Hey everybody, this is Motorcycle Mike, the personal injury lawyer. I've been riding motorcycles my entire adult life. During the course of my 30-year career as a lawyer, I've also represented countless injured motorcyclists. If you're one of them, I can be of assistance to you. Go to my website, please. MotorcycleMikeESQ.com. I'll always be there for you. I'm on your side when you ride.
Welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill. This is Pastor Ski again. And we're going to continue a conversation we started last week, really kind of entitled Truth Will Be Exposed by Your Life Eventually. Life will eventually expose the truth about you. And last week we talked about, faith, what your convictions are, what your religious, perspective is. And how when life gets tough and when things come at you, and whether it's health, financial, and that, the reality of whether you actually believe what you say you believe or are what you say you are tends to be exposed. And so this week, as I have thought about this topic really since we started it, there's really a broader question about even the individual. People tend to put on airs these days. They're looking to be something else. So how do we know what's true about people? How do we know they are what they say they are? Why do we as a humanity aren't satisfied with what we are, and we have to live up to someone else's expectations or be someone that we might not be? And so, as we dig into this conversation, I want to bring Bobby in and into the conversation. And I think we have some things to talk about today. So how you doing, Bobby?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You ready for Thanksgiving?
No, actually, I'm not ready, but I'm getting ready.
It's crazy that we're almost into November already.
It's ridiculous.
It just seemed like we went into lockdown yesterday, and that was March, I think.
I know. I can't believe it's been like 8 months.
I know.
It's
I know.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, so what do you got, Bobby?
All right. So we're talking about truth and the search for truth. And my question to you this week is, and I like to compare how our civilization today, comparing it back to ancient times. And I just feel, do you think like we have gotten lazy in our search for the truth? It seems like we're so willing to accept certain so-called facts that are put in front of us, and we take them as truth. And it's like, for an example, it's like we go online, we search a question, and then bang, the first thing that comes up. And we all know that not everything on the internet is true. Well, why do we seem to accept what is put in front of us first? It just seems like we've gotten lazy in the search and the investigation for the truth. Mm-hmm. We're so willing to accept something that's just put in front of us. We don't investigate it. We don't really, research it, compare it to other things. And is this something with our society today? Back, in ancient times, I'm sure that people were curious and they wanted the truth. Are we more lazy today, or do you think this has always been going on? It just seems like, I don't know. We don't want to work anymore. These kids today are just like, they go on Google, they look up something, that's the truth, that's what it is. They don't understand.
Sometimes we just sound old, don't we?
I know. It's true.
Being raised in the 60s, yeah. We were doing the same thing. We wanted to find our own version of the truth. Whether it was the hippie culture, or the beatniks, and that movement through Make Love Not War, and all this stuff. This has always been a humanity problem. I think as you understand society as a whole, culture as a whole, there isn't a lot of difference. There's differences in cultures and societies, but what moves them, I think, is similar. We're all brought up and raised in certain environments. and it kind of forms our perspective of the truth before we actually have the opportunity to search for what is really the truth. I mean, you and me come from a different era, and looking at from a Christian perspective, I mean, we were kind of raised in an era where Christianity was more promoted by family life, by culture, and it was something that was part of the fabric of this country as a whole. Whether it was Catholicism, whether it was Judaism, I think Pentecostalism and kind of that started to really take root when I was younger. But I think to a big extent, everyone is a product of their individual environment as they come out. And the problem with what's happened now in our country and probably in the world is society has decided what they feel is their version of what the truth is. And so, it used to be where you were raised by your family, and if you were raised in a Catholic family, you were given a certain perspective, and your morality was a certain perspective. And so, family life tended to mold the kickoff point, I guess, of what we would walk into the world as truth. And then now everything is so fractured, and even coming from a faith perspective, which is a big part of the whole picture, because faith or no faith has a big bearing on what direction we end up going in. And I think people are now, young people in particular, are raised with a prejudicial view of truth. Either it comes from peer pressure, or it comes from their family. And so laziness, absolutely. I think people are not willing anymore to search for ultimate truth. Most people, they go online, like you said, and they have a perspective, and the first thing they do is they've tried to prove their perspective. Mm-hmm. And we can always find people to agree with us, what we want the truth to be. And that's why you go online, or even, you see so many religious programs on like the History Channel and all these networks that have an individual's or a group's idea of what they would like the truth to be, and then they take all the data and they handpick and they customize it to make their truth look like the ultimate truth. And absolutely, people are lazy. I mean, you look in what's happening with our country in higher education, and my perspective and how I've kind of fallen into an area has been totally discounted by higher education, because there's been a promotion that faith is illogical, and that has now been kind of promoted through our higher education. And so now you have people who are going into their most formative years, whether it's high school, going into college, with a progressive mindset of all the faculty. History is skewed. You see history books have been changed. They're deleting history, and the beauty of history is supposed to be, we know the good, the bad, the ugly, but we know the truth of the human story, so we can kind of figure out how to walk better in the future. And the problem is now, because of prejudicial views of history, and particularly how faith has played a part, they've eliminated and are not teaching the full beauty of all of history, whether it's faiths, different faiths, whether it's atheism, whether it's how racial discrimination has come and go, been helped in some instances and been solidified in other instances. And so young people are only getting one perspective, and this is why we have a lot of the problems with the divide in our country. Mm-hmm. Is people have been taught one thing and they're not hearing the whole picture. And so you can't process, and you actually cannot move forward into the future unless you have all the truth and all the data to actually weigh it. And that's why you have these two camps, and both of them are working in a skewed, and I'm, I tend to be ultra conservative. I'm far right, and I think probably more progressively than a lot of people that would be along with how I believe, because I want to hear. I want to hear the other ideas. I want to hear the truth. And I've said this time and time again on the show that unless we know all of everything, we could never find what is the ultimate truth. You can't know what is absolute truth unless you're willing to listen through and search through everything. And truth will always expose itself, and non-truth will always expose itself through the data and through true scientific process. So yeah, I think people are lazy. They accept whatever they're taught. And you go to college and you have a progressive teacher, well, you're probably going to come out, with that mindset, even on top of whatever subject matter he's teaching you.
Yeah. And these kids today, they, when we look at our teachers and in positions of experience and are educated and we value their opinion, but yet it seems like we can't always take what they say for the truth, and I think these kids today are very, very well influenced, and they just accept things very easily.
Yeah. I came out of, when I was raised, I was sheltered in the alternative. I was sheltered in a faith family, and so I got to understand our faith, but then I went 3,000 miles to a secular university, and all of a sudden I'm exposed by everything else in the world, and you start to question, because why was this information held from me? And so, I struggled for a long time with my faith, and I remember, even the drug culture, until I went to college, if you remember the movie Reefer Madness, it was a propaganda movie put out by really a conservative mindset on convincing kids that, if you ended up going into drugs, you would just be total freaks and you would just die and do really crazy, loony stuff. And when I went to college, I found out, well, it's not quite the way it is sometimes. And I struggled because I didn't have all the information either. I thank God that through my investigation, I did come back to what I believe is the truth, but it threw me for a loop for a good portion of my life, because it works both ways. I don't believe that Christian parents should seclude themselves, their children, totally from what else is out there, So, yeah, I think people are lazy, especially young people.
Okay, I agree. I think we're all it's not just the young, like you said, it's all of us. It's not just the kids, We really have become very...
Well, no, us old fogies don't listen to new ideas either.
Yeah.
And I believe there is truth, but I believe as you are exposed to newer ideas, I think truth becomes clearer as the generations go by.
Yeah.
It doesn't get eliminated; it gets clearer.
Yeah, and as we get older, too, I think we start to take our life experiences and what we were taught and what we learned and kind of get them all together, and then we come up with what we believe is the truth.
Yeah, that's actually, after this break, that's kind of an area I wanted to touch on.
Okay, cool.
So after this break, we'll come back and we'll continue this talk about truth and exposing it in people's lives. This is Pastor Ski, and I want to tell you about two books that I've written, The Fear of Life and No Sting. The Fear of Life is my journey of faith and how I lived in fear for close to 35 years and how God took me out of it. No Sting is about my battle with cancer and my victory through God over it. And if you're interested in any of these books, go to barnesandnoble.com. Amazon.com and also ZulonPress.com. Go to the bookstore. And again, I want to thank you for your support. Welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill. Pastor Ski again, and me and Bobby have been talking about the search for truth, why truth has become something that is almost a thing of the past, and how people, the search for truth, people are lazy. They're not really looking for absolute truth. They're accepting other things. And as I was going through, this week, thinking about what I want to discuss here, and bring it a little bit to a God perspective. God created us all diverse, created us all different, different personalities, different features, different looks, different sounds, different voices. And, I think at the end of the last segment, we were talking about, as you get older. And, when you kind of look at how the Bible describes how we should all be as a culture and a society, people who have gone through life have amassed a resume of experience and wisdom, whether it's through making every mistake in the book or, just investigating and finding out wisdom. And the Bible always talks about the honor that should be given to people of age, and not just because they're old and they can't do the things they used to do, but the fact that they have learned a lot of lessons, and we're in a society where aging has become almost a sin. Everybody is trying to be younger, look younger, be something else, to the point where we want to change how we look as we get older. People are getting cosmetic surgery and covering wrinkles and fixing this and enhancing that and making this smaller, making that bigger, and all kinds of things to not be what they are. And God created us that everything about a person is so unique, and the life that they lived, that they brought into that life, the experiences and everything else. Sometimes, people go through hard lives, it tends to show more on their features. And that's the honest truth of what their life is. And we should celebrate that. And people who've gone through a lot, well, they have a lot that they can bring to the table on how to get through things, that they've been through things. But people are just hiding what they are. They're ashamed of what they are. Whether it's status in life. There are people who learn a lot different lessons because of their economic place in life might be a lot more challenging. If you can sit at times and you can learn a hell of a lot from someone who's homeless, walking the streets with a shopping cart with all their possessions in it. You sit for a half an hour and talk to someone like that, and you get some pretty true, honest perspectives about life in general. And the thing is, we're in a society now where who is that person you're talking to? Social media, everybody is not who they are, whether it's glamming up the pictures so they don't look like what they look like when you meet them. They've got a persona that may or may not be close to what they really are. And so truth between even humans, even friends, has become something that is antiquated. And that's why it's a very dangerous culture we live in. When you want to understand truth, it's not more than just what is truth about life, what is truth about God. What is true about that person that you're sharing an intimate friendship with, or you're going through life with, or you're sharing this part of your life with. Truth is one of the maybe the most important thing that we have to really kind of adhere to as a humanity. Otherwise, we're just going through life paranoid, not trusting anyone or anything all the time. And that's why this story, this conversation on truth is so vital. I mean, we all put on airs. We all do it. It's kind of a lot in faith world. No matter what faith you believe in, we all want to come over that we got our act together more than we probably actually do. We're closer to God than we actually are. We've got this faith and we're strong, and we're afraid to expose our weaknesses. And there's a beauty in an honesty of somebody's life, and as we can be a humanity that's more together in truth, we can help each other, carry each other, share. Like I said, you sit and you talk with someone who has just been in a very low part of life for a long time, and you may learn more things than you could ever learn from someone who has got all the book knowledge in the world. And so it's a very dangerous time we're living in. And, I don't know, Bobby, if you got something you want to, because this is, I think, a very vital topic that we need to harness as a humanity in general, because we're all phonies to some degree. And we don't want to wait until life just breaks us down to be exposed. Deal with the weaknesses and stuff now between each other.
Yeah, and I think we're so easily settled to accept the truth that works with what the answer we're looking for in a way too.
Yeah.
We don't like to accept the truth that conflicts with what we believed. Either initially or for many years or whatever. But yeah, I think it's definitely an issue. I think we're going to struggle with this more and more, especially with technology, because that's what really makes it. Mm-hmm. Something could spread so fast, like instantly. Something could be put out there at night, and literally 8 hours later, the next morning, all over the world, everybody's believing this one thing that never had any truth to it in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's really scary how technology could really put those false teachings and false beliefs out there so fast, and people just initially they just accept it so fast.
Well, even now, I've got some people that I'm trying to help that they've formed relationships online with people who aren't what they're saying they are.
Yeah.
And people are like getting deep emotional attachments to people, and that's why you look at child pornography and people that are using other people is so promoted and so empowered by the internet, because somebody can come over as something they're not, lure you into a place or a situation, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a very dangerous place. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame, and we see a culture where nobody is satisfied with the truth of who they are. They spend their life trying to be someone else, and a lot of this dissatisfaction draws people into alcoholism, into drug abuse, because they're just not comfortable in who they are. Because I think an important truth is if we're honest with ourselves and we're comfortable with who we are, we can actually take the core of who we are and make something from it. Mm-hmm. Running away from it doesn't do anything. It never solves anything.
No. And because it's only a matter of time, the truth eventually comes out. And it's really hard when you when you know something, when you get to that point when you know that what you've been believing is wrong, and you have to get to that point where you have to admit that you were wrong or your beliefs were wrong, and you have to accept and be.
Well, that's it.
The
I mean, the most dangerous thing is to be self-inflicted and stuck in a wrong way of thinking.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to change.
But and that's why people don't want to admit that they were wrong. They don't want to admit that what they were thinking or what they believed was wrong. But we have to, and in this society, people, it's like we punish people for making positive changes in their lives, and we keep bringing up the negative. Oh well, you're not a good person because you said this 30 years ago. But that person is not that person anymore, and
Right.
they've learned things that they didn't know. So we have to definitely accept the fact that we were wrong, admit that we were wrong, and share the truth, share what we learned with others, because it's just so many people believing things that just aren't the truth,
Yeah.
or twisted or adapted to our beliefs or
Yeah,
our
and
society.
we don't even think about the fact that we affect so many people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what you've been talking about is a problem with humility. People don't want to be humble and admit that somebody else had it right and you had it wrong. And humility is one of the most important traits that we need as humanity.
Yeah, I mean, and even in science, how many times does that happen? We have the scientists have this belief, this theory, this is what happened, and then 10 years later, it just so happens that that's not true anymore. This happens to be the truth.
Well, that's
so if scientists could admit that they're wrong, and these are people, that educated people that we put our value in their research and everything, and we have to admit things are wrong. And if science could admit that they're wrong and things are not what we believed, we have to do that as individuals also.
Yeah, well, science is not truth. Science
it's the search for truth.
Science
really.
is the search for truth. So the truth in science tends to shift. One of the problems that our president's dealing with is this thing that came out, this pandemic. It's brand new, and so all of a sudden, what they thought was truth, and then we learned more about it, and now this is truth. First it was masks, no masks, masks, no masks. What's the truth?
Yeah.
And as science is finding out more, and we tend to blame people for adapting to what is true. But actually, they're being honest people by saying, okay, things have changed, we have more information now. And so now what we thought was true before, because we're more informed, is now not true. Now this is true. And you hold it against them from being honest with you.
Exactly.
Instead of, having somebody stuck in their way and saying, I don't care what the facts are. I said this is true, so this is always going to be true. And we should applaud people that are willing to change their thoughts based on new information.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anyway, I think we're winding down.
Yep.
This went very quick today.
Yes, it did.
And so, after our next break, we're going to be going into the word for the week. A little more, faith based on this premise of truth, and how life will eventually expose the truth, and why truth is important in general. And so, this I believe is one of the most important topics of humanity, is being true to ourselves, being true to who we are, moving in the truth. And so, when we come back for our next break, we're going to have our word for the day, our word for the week, and we're going to find out what God has to say about truth. And so we'll see you after the word from our sponsor.
Hey everybody, this is Motorcycle Mike, the personal injury lawyer. In addition to representing injured motorcyclists for over 30 years now, during that same time, I've represented countless car crash victims and construction workers injured on construction sites. If you need my assistance, go to my website, motorcyclemikeesq.com. I will always be there for you.
This is Pastor Ski, and I want to tell you about two books that I've written, The Fear of Life and No Sting. The Fear of Life is my journey of faith and how I lived in fear for close to 35 years and how God took me out of it. No Sting is about my battle with cancer and my victory through God over it. And if you're interested in any of these books, go to barnesandnoble.com. Amazon.com and also ZulonPress.com. Go to the bookstore. And again, I want to thank you for your support. Welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill. This is Pastor Ski again, and this portion of the show is the word for the week. And we've been discussing this premise of life will eventually expose the truth of what you are. And this week we've been talking about how we seem to have fallen into a society and a culture where everyone is not willing to share the truth about themselves. That they want to be something else, they aspire to something else. They might be ashamed of what they are, and the truth of who people are tends to be hidden, and so we don't really know the truth about many of the people that are our friends, acquaintances, people we work with. And truth, it just seems, is at a premium right now. Everybody's hiding inside something, and I think part of the power of being in this faith of Christianity is we have the freedom to be truthful about who we are, the brokenness we have, the faults we have. And in humility, just understand that in order for us to have a great life, or even be a great person, that we need to have something outside of ourselves, and that's where Jesus comes in. Jesus said that He is the way, the truth, and the light, and He also said that the truth will set you free. And that's a really big, deep spiritual truth about the truth setting us free. Galatians tells us, Paul in his letter to Galatians says it was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. And I think what most people don't understand is, when we're living to the expectations of the world, when we're not content with who we are, we're a slave to something else, to someone else, to a culture that demands us maybe to be something else, that looks down at us for what we are. And whether it's racial, whether it's intellectual, it might be how we look, actually. We see that people are going out of their way these days, many people, to change even how they look, that they're not satisfied with the truth of who they actually are. And so they're getting, plastic surgery, they're getting breast enhancement, breast reduction, make this bigger, make that smaller, make that different. And it just shows that people are not comfortable in the truth of who they are. God created us all as individuals. And, when we get away from, what the world's expectations are and who even created, what is a good-looking woman or a good-looking man? Even that alone, we go back, 40, 50 years, and what was considered an attractive woman is totally different than what it is today. And the sad thing is culture and society has created expectations that makes people think more of themselves and also lifts people up to a false sense of security by becoming something that they really aren't. I believe we all are supposed to be comfortable in our own skin, comfortable in our own age. In the previous segment, I was sharing with Bobby that, in biblical days and even in cultures, you look at, I think part of, and maybe it's just my perception, part of the Italian culture, part of even Middle Eastern culture, is that with age there comes respect, because we really should understand that people who have been through more life have amassed more knowledge, whether that's by just making so many mistakes or whether it's just by having a lot of years to investigate what is true. And unfortunately, we've created a culture where we're trained to be not satisfied with ourselves if we don't meet up to some expectation. And so many people, I mean, I would dare say the majority of people, are not true to themselves, especially in this day of social media, where people can hide behind a camera, can hide behind their phone, can say and type whatever they want, and can create a persona that that is someone they might want to be, but is not someone who they really are. And it creates a culture of dishonesty. And as I mentioned before, it can create lives of addictions, of alcoholism, of all kinds of things, because we're not satisfied with who we are. Paul the Apostle said, "I've learned to be content in all things." I've had times where I haven't gone through things. There's times that I've had plenty, and I've learned to be content in all things. And I think even, we look at our appearance, our talents, our intellect. God created a diversity of humanity that everything should be celebrated. There are people who tend to be simpler than other people, and they have an innocence and they have a simplicity of understanding that people who think they're intellectual kind of look down at. And then there's people who are blessed with a high intellect that number one, that people are intimidated by them at times, and also it can make people think way too much of themselves. Because just because someone's smart doesn't mean they're more valuable, doesn't mean they're any better than anyone else. And so, this question of who we really are, we started last week with the truth of what we believe. Are we really true to the things that we believe? When push comes to shove and things get hard and things get challenging, the truth of your faith comes out, and also when you're in a social environment, when you have created a persona that might not be you, if you've dolled yourself up and created a glam personality, so to speak, whether it's online or whether it's through how you want people to perceive you, there's going to be a time when the reality of who you are is exposed. And to be honest with you, it's a lot of work to hide who you truly are. Whether it's, you're trying to perceive yourself or have people perceive you with a faith that isn't in you, that you have insecurities and you're hiding insecurities, you're hiding your fear. And that's not a good thing, because, if you have things that you have to deal with, it's a good thing to have those things out there so people can actually help you, come alongside you. And it's just too much work. I remember a season in my life where, I was a lot of phoniness in my life. I mean, I was going to church and I was kind of playing the role of a believer. Kind of thought I might have believed, but I hadn't surrendered to this faith. And I remember how hard it was at times when things came up and you had to actually kind of live out your faith. And you find out you don't really have the chops to do it, because you don't have, in our faith, what we believe, we have the Holy Spirit. You really don't have even the spiritual resources to actually play out who you're trying to have people believe you are. And I was also in parts of my life where, you want to be successful. And I was in a profession of sales, and a profession where you dressed a certain way. You hear dress for success. And, I even drank the drink that was the popular drink of successful people and smoked the right cigarette. And, I was just not who I am, and it was work. And you end up, going home every night or just sitting when you have a chance to get away. And it's like, who am I? I've been taken over by this person, and you have so many issues, so many challenges, and I thank God that when I found the truth, as far as what I know to be the truth of faith, it allowed me to be true to myself and be free to be myself. And I never thought that I was going to be called to be a pastor of a church, And to be honest with you, when I had my vision of what a pastor is, and many out there probably have their vision of a pastor is, and what he looks like, what he sounds like, what he dresses like, that just was not me. And so it was never on my radar that this would be something that, I would be, even as I started to grow in faith. And then you start to find out that there are churches and paraministries and way to celebrate our differences within this faith of Christianity, where you have ministries that are out to certain people groups, and just when I started to gravitate towards being in this biker community and being with people that I really can relate to and think like, and then God kind of enlightens you and you see the resources out there, and you could actually be a pastor and be a biker and sound like a pastor and sound like a biker and dress like unpastoral, I guess you would say, and you find yourself in a place of total comfort, and that's what God wants, and that's what when we try to bring people to an understanding of what Jesus came to bring us. It's much more than just some religious expression. It's that we can be who we were created to be, have a comfort and even an empowerment to walk in the life that we were created for, wired the way we're wired, whether it's an intellectual calling, whether it's a caring and emotional, loving calling, whether it's a trade calling, because some are more gifted, and then you apply your faith to it, and you see that there's a comfort and a freedom that comes with faith in Jesus Christ, that all God ever asked of us, all Jesus ever empowered us to be, was the best us that we could be. And that's the truth of who we are. And that's really, if you think about a humanity and just this whole project of humanity, you would think that, if there was a creator, if there was a God, that if he created us all different, that there had to be a truth of who we are, what we're called to do, what we're here for. And that's really an empowerment that comes with this faith in Jesus Christ. And you find out that, the more you gravitate towards the truth, the more you gravitate towards God. When the hard things happen, you've already been who you're going to be. You've already been strengthened in who you're strengthened to be. And so it's a natural progression, a natural inner strength that gets you through this truth that is now you. And so that's the word for the week. And then next week we're gonna probably venture into a different topic. This is Pastor Ski of the Rushing Wind Biker Church. I want to thank you for tuning into our show. If you feel led to contribute to this show, you can text GIVE to the number 631-253-7773. You can send a donation online to the Rushing Wind Biker Church website at rushingwindbc.org. Click donate, and then make a note that it's for the Answers from Mars Hill show. And I want to thank our sponsors, Motorcycle Mike and Kenny Wolfman Max from Wolfman Biker Leather, and also, of course, Bobby from Strong Island TV. So this has been Answers from Mars Hill. God bless you. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week.